as questions on four choice in the end, but the bulk of it's going to be what we write down. And about 60% or so is going to be based on calculations. The other 40% is going to be based on your understanding of the concepts. That means some of the questions you can answer without doing any calculation, just giving a logical argument as to why you think this should be the answer to the question and so on. Okay. So the topics we'll be covering today are going to be more on the quantitative side. So I want you to pay attention to the discussion we're going over, and also the logic that we use to approach each of the issues, especially regarding corporate financing. Okay. And then the next class, next week, we have a guest speaker who's going to come and talk to you about financing strategies and so on. He's going to give some brilliant prep for the final simulation game we played in class and the last one. So we are halfway through the class already. So I hope you guys have been keeping up. Other things we'll be talking about today will seem like a repeat of what just being said not so long ago. That's because the last couple of weeks we had a very rushed pace. So we covered a lot of ground. I intentionally put some of the old stuff we talked about in the past few lectures for again in the next one, because that's where it all comes into play. So we're connecting a lot of things we talked about into one big piece. But let me go over what we were talking about last time first. Okay, so we started talking about the concept of real options. And forget about the word, what exactly means. Option just means you get to choose, right? That's when you have option, you get choice. So the idea is, what if you get to make different decisions along the way? I don't need to follow the trajectory I plan now from today, because if something happens along the way that could give me more opportunities, or could allow me to limit my losses and so on, I want to take that opportunity, and that's the logic behind real options. I want to embed the ability to change the mind inside the way we evaluate projects. And we saw an example of the option to expand last time, that if you build one hotel, it might be a bad idea. If you build one hotel with the ability to expand to 10 hotels in view, then maybe building that one single hotel to test out the market first might not be a bad idea after all. And the other example we saw last time was, even if you have one hotel, it doesn't mean you should disregard the ability to build a hotel, even though it looks like it's loss-making. Because if it's loss-making, you have other options. You can abandon. Here, we just quit. In other cases, you could sell the hotel, right? Exit the business. So you can limit your downside loss. Then what you thought was bad might not be as bad as you previously imagined it is. And that's the power of the flexibility that is embedded inside your decision making. Okay. So this was the numerical example last time. We stopped right here. We had an example of a very a situation where your outcome can be very, very diverse. It could be very bad versus very good. So if it's very good, you want to do it. You want to abandon it. If it's very bad and you have to keep on doing it, that's where really, when you do the NPV analysis without taking into account the different possibilities that happen, you look at the average outcome. Then you decide that, it looks bad on average. Here we're not settling the average. Here we're looking at the conditional decisions that we can make along the path. So if it's bad, we quit. So our loss is not as bad. So instead of choosing the option here, where we just continue indefinitely, we know logically this doesn't make sense, but in our plain vanilla analysis, that's what we're doing. We're assuming we continue with our trajectory forever. So if we build in that decision to quit, then maybe it's not as bad. When you take the expected value of the ability to quit, you will decide to quit if it's bad. So the outcome looks more appealing than it originally was. If you recall, the original NPV was negative. With this, it turns out your NPV is positive, so you want to do it. The last option we haven't talked about last time is the option to delay. Okay, so let me switch back. Okay, let's continue with the cash flow. Okay. If you could delay your decision to build, okay, then let's have a look at how that impacts the ability If you can delay, and in delaying, you can find out more about what's going to happen. Then, if you wait and not build, and then you find out it's a bad idea after all. In practice, this could be things like, I announce I'm going to build a hotel, and then everyone just says what a bad idea it is. You open for pre-booking without building, nobody signs up. Then maybe that's a bad indication. So let's just quit without doing anything. Okay, so the idea here is if you wait, you learn a bit more about the business. We're going to go to the extreme case where if you wait 1 year, you wouldn't know for sure whether it's a good or bad business. Okay, then you might want to change your decision in doing so. So here I think if you draw a tree, okay, it might be a little clearer. Okay? If you recall your decision, you've taken the decision-making class, right? No? Okay. But I'm sure you've seen some trees, like your decision trees and so on. So let me give you some general notation when you draw a tree. Each point, okay, of a tree where it branches out, we call this a node. Like if I draw this is a node. Then it can branch out into some possibilities. Okay, this could be, say, good. This could be bad. If I draw a node as a circle, this is called a chance node. This is the uncertainty, this randomness in the world that you have no control over. I don't know whether it's going to be up or down. I just know that it has some likelihood that it could be good or it could be bad. So this is called a chance node. Let me notate this for you. This is a chance node. Could be good or bad. And to see this, you need to wait 1 year. Then after you've seen it, you can make your decision. Okay, I draw a node as well, but I draw a node with a square. If it's drawn as a square, it's called a decision node. Here you get to make a choice. What do I do? Do I build? Do I not build? So you're going to make a choice here. So I can build or not build. And notice there's no probability associated with this because it's not randomness, it's your choice. You get to pick to go on the first branch or the bottom branch, it's up to you. So I can draw a similar thing, okay, bad, but I'm going to draw the tree so that it kind of goes to the same place. I can not build, end up in the same place. Now, or I can build. So next I could calculate, okay, what are my payoffs going to be if I say not build? That's easy. If you don't build, you don't get anything. So the NPV associated with this it's going to be 0, not doing anything. Okay. The NPV associated with building, and let's say when we say good, we mean good like 60, and bad like minus 20 bad. So we can use the old numbers that we had from earlier, right? We know that if it's good, NPV is plus 180. If it's bad, NPV is minus 220. So I'll use the same numbers we calculated without recalculating for you. From earlier, NPV of good is plus 180, and NPV of bad minus 220. So you get to choose. Right? Do I choose between NPV of minus 220 or 0? No. If I build, I make a loss. So let's not build instead. So if you end up in this branch of two possible realities, you say, if it's bad, I won't build. So I'm gonna choose this. I'm going to not build, okay, if it's bad. So my payoff here is going to be 0. If bad, it's going to be 0 because you were choosing between 0 and minus 220. Similarly, you can do the same thing for the good state. Okay. If it's good, if I build my NPV is plus 180. If I don't build, my NPV is 0. So I'm going to build. So if it's good, So let me walk you through this again. Okay, so this tree gives you the decision we're making right now. First of all, we start off with a chance node. This is the state of the world, which we have no idea what it's going to be or what the world is going to be. But we know if we wait 1 year, we're going to see if we end up down this branch or down that branch. Here we have no choice. We just have to pray upon the stars that we end up in a good state, but they could equally be in that state too. But once we do see where we end up, next node is a decision node. I get to decide now, do I invest or not? So if it turns out it's a bad idea to build, we know from numbers earlier, if we do build and it's bad, we're going to make a lot. We're going to lose a lot of money. NPV is going to be minus 220. On the other hand, if you don't build, your next alternative is 0. So if you end up down here, your choice is going to be, I'm not going to build, sorry, stay put. If you end up in that node, you have a choice between building, NPV is plus 180, versus not building, NPV is 0. So here you're going to say, let's build. Because building, I know for sure now, I'm going to make money, so let's build. So now we reduce to, if it's good, we're going to build. If it's bad, we're going to not build. But we're making our decision today. We don't know. We don't know whether we're going to do or not. There's another decision at the front, which I haven't talked about, is do I build now or do I wait? Okay, so I won't draw this in front because it's going to make the tree more complicated. But that's another decision right here. Do I build today or do I wait? Of course, we saw earlier, if you build today, well, it's minus 20 without any option. If I build today, if I could abandon, then it's like 13.6 or something. So let's see, if I build today and I have the option to delay, my number, I think it's 21.7, sorry. So let me take the number from last time first. Okay, if I could delay, then my NPV with delay, we calculated that as a half times 180 plus a half times minus 136.7 equals plus 21.7. So think of this as our baseline. If we build today and we could abandon in the future, it's still a good idea. We can build it, no problem. We're going to see if we can delay. Sorry. If not, we can delay. If we can, let me rephrase. Here we build today, but we could abandon in the future. Suppose this is the one option we have in our bag. If I add another decision, but you don't have to build today. You can wait and see what's going to happen first before you decide to build. Would you decide to build today, or would you delay and see what happens? So that's what we want to see, right? So now the number to beat is 21.7. If the NPV of delaying doesn't match 21.7, then we're going to build today. I think it's worth it to just go ahead and do it. But if on the other hand, I wait and delay and my NPV is greater than 21.7, it means the option of waiting to delay can potentially get me more. So we will delay in that case. Okay, very good. So back to our problem earlier. We have NPV if good, and NPV if bad. We don't know where this is going to be. So we know there's probability half that it's going to be good. There's probably half is going to be bad. So when you do this expected value, it comes out to 90. There's one thing to be aware of. If you have to wait for 1 year, there's additional cost. If you build today, you start earning money sooner. You wait 1 year, you have the opportunity cost that you could have earned, but you're not earning. So this NPV, in essence, is NPV that you get when you invest, but you invest at t equals 1. So this NPV is actually 1 year into the future. Right? This is at t equals 1. This is at t equals 1. So to make t equals 1 into t equals 0, you have to discount one more time. So the final number is 75. Now you can compare this with the earlier option that we have. If we wait 1 year, even though we have an opportunity cost of waiting for 1 year, accounting for all this is still worth it. It's still worth waiting. Because if we would not wait and we go ahead right now, we still have a chance of making money, yes, sooner. But we also have a chance of losing money. Notice what's going on over here. If we wait according to our definition over here, you're never going to lose money. Because if things are bad, you're not going to invest. You're only going to invest when things are good. So this is what this option delay is giving you. Okay, here's an extreme case because in reality, you probably don't know with full certainty when you wait 1 year. But at least if you know more information and that information is helpful, you may decide to delay. Like the example, many empty lands that we see that they could build, assume they have the money to build, so why don't they build? Well, it could be that they want to see if there's going to be better things that come along while they wait. Things are good already, but there could be better things. So that's the numerical proof for the option to delay. Now let me change the numbers a little bit. Okay? If I change the numbers back to our original numbers, remember our expected value of cash flow 20, original case was 30 and 10. Then we use 60 and minus 20. So let me use the original numbers. If the cash flows were 30 and 10 instead, I use a different number, maybe use red perhaps. If it was 30 and 10, okay, what would our numbers be like? So let's redo the calculations. The NPV when it's good was 30. So the 180 would be 30. And the NPV when it's bad was minus 70. So when you redo the calculation, okay, it becomes half times 30 plus half times 12. It's less of a loss, but still a loss nonetheless. So when it's bad, you're still not going to do it. Okay, so you're still going to make 0. But I just wanted to show you that once we change the numbers from 60 and minus 20 back to the original 30 and 10, we're going to get the different numbers inside. And our output is 12.5. Now don't compare this with the 21.7, okay, because that was associated with these numbers. So what do you compare this number with this number? 75 is greater than 12.5. 75 is more valuable than 12.5. So what's the difference, okay, between the first number in black and the second number in red? You take the expected value of the cash flow, it's still 20. Right? The average of minus 20 and 60, or the average of 10 and 30 is still 20. Same project on average. But remember when we do decisions on our real analysis, we don't want to stay at the average. We care about why is the average 20. What are the inputs that make the average 20? If the inputs are 60 and minus 20, that's really wide. It's really risky. On the other hand, if it's 10 and 30, it's a lot narrower. Okay? It's still risky, but not as risky as 6 and minus 20. Okay? The width of variation is a lot lower. In other words, the red number, despite I use the number red, is actually a less risky project compared to the numbers implied by the black ink over here. So what this says is, if the risk of your underlying project is high, having an option to delay and reevaluate is more valuable. When you have a lot of uncertainty, then if you can change your mind contingent on observing some outcomes, then it's going to be more valuable for you. This is the principles, okay, of the right to choose option. If you can choose, okay, your ability to choose will be increasingly valuable as the risk of your decision increases. If there's not a lot of risk, you get to choose, but hey, I get to choose, and so what? I'm not going to change my mind anyway. That's the way the logical argument can go. But if there's a lot of risk, then there's a lot of things I could change my mind about. In fact, the decisions that I make could actually end up saving me a lot of money. I could avoid a lot of losses if I get to change my mind. So the more uncertain the outcomes can be, the more losses I can avoid, the more valuable that decision to choose is going to be. We're going to see this again when we come back to risk management. Okay, we're going to see some quantification of financial risk and how those financial risks can be managed using instruments. One of the instruments we're going to talk about is an option that gives you the right to make some decisions that is better off for you. Same logic will carry through. If you get to choose, the more uncertain the outcome, okay, the more valuable that ability to choose is going to be for you. Okay. Now, I think a lot of the calculations are taken care of. Okay, so let me do a bit more discussions on this, and then we can move on to the next topic. So, if you think about what we're doing over here, right? In the 75 number, the option to delay. Essentially, the option to delay is a trade-off between two things. Okay, number one is you're trading off time. Okay, you're trading off time opportunity cost for the ability to avoid some damages. In this case, it could be the other way around. It could be a ability to make some money, but still, it's going to be about something you don't know about. So here, if you wait one more year, you have opportunity cost. But if you wait one more year, you also have the ability to make a more viable decision. So if I say, if you don't need to wait for that year, but you can find out immediately whether it's going to be good or bad, we can skip the opportunity cost part. When we discount it by 20%, the original number was 90. Right? Half times 180 plus half times 0 is 90. But we discounted that by 20% and we got 75. So if we were able to build today, knowing that it's good, the project would have been worth a lot. Obviously we don't know. So if you can find somebody to tell you without needing to wait, then you don't have to pay money. You don't have to suffer from the loss of the opportunity cost. So how much are you willing to pay? When you buy research, marketing research, one aspect of buying marketing research is buying things that you may know already. You just want it faster. If that's the case, what you're buying is your opportunity cost of time. But our example over here, we assume that if we wait, you will get the information for free. In reality, there's a lot of information that even if you wait, you're never going to get. So if you end up working in, say, marketing research or get involved with it, one way to think about what marketing research does is information acquisition. So what kind of information am I buying? Am I buying information that I would have access to already, but just later? I just want it faster than everyone. Okay. Or am I buying something that I'm never going to be able to have access to forever? Which one do you think is more valuable? Speed or possibility? We can do some quantification here, right? If you're doing it for speed, we can say that, well, if we know today, and you can build today. Of course, we don't know whether it's good or bad. You have to be in a lottery where it's 50-50 could be good or bad. But if we do know today, we can build today, our value will be 90. If we have to wait 1 year, we calculated earlier, our value will be 75. So the gap between 90 and 75 must then reflect our value of that information. If we have to pay more than 15, not worth it. If our marketing research costs less than 15, then you can buy it. Probably going to be worth it. You may buy it and it turns out it's bad, but at least you don't have to wait 1 year. You can use your funds to do something else instead. But if instead, that's the explanation of what we talked about. But if instead, you're never going to find out how successful your idea is going to be ever, even if you waited, then how much are you willing to pay? In the other extreme case, it means your option to delay is now gone. Your option to delay is now gone. If you build today, we're going to get 21.7. right? We calculated that earlier. We built today, we have the option to abandon, so our NPV is 21.7. But if we have information today, our value is going to be 90. So let's do 90 minus 21.7, 63.8, 68.3. That's how much you are willing to pay. What does 68.3 represent? Let me take you back to the numbers here. We don't have 68.3 on this explicitly, but is there a calculation on here that if you do the calculation, once you multiply things out, you get 68.3? Which of the numbers up here that you think can get us 68.3 of all these numbers? Let me give you again. Okay, 68.3, let's multiply that by 2. What do you get? $68.3 multiplied by 2. Do we see some numbers similar to that one here? 136.66666. Let me round it up to 7. It's precisely this number. What does this number represent? 136.7, what does it represent? Economically, in our decision, what does 136.7 represent over here? Any random guesses? Fine. Let's just see 136.7. What type of number is it? Okay. What does it indicate in our calculations on the sheet of it? Is it a good number or a bad number? It's a bad number. What does it represent? It's the loss you're making from building that hotel when it's bad. So, it's a loss you're making, but the value we got from the earlier sheet is half that. What does half represent? Half is a probability that things are actually bad. Remember, before you buy information, you actually don't know whether it's going to be good or bad. It's 50-50 chance it could be good or bad. So 50 times 136.7, 136.6 gives you, 68.3. That represents the expected damage that could occur to you had you built and then things turn out to be bad. So we said this is the value information we're going to pay. Does it make sense now why we're paying this much? We're paying for information not to learn information sooner. We're paying for information that if we had that information, we could avoid making this loss. So this is why we're willing to pay up to that much. Because under the example over here, that's how much damage that we could incur if we go ahead without knowing anything. So we were gonna buy information instead, so that if we had that information, then we don't end up making this mistake when things are bad and it turned out you built it already. So back to marketing research question again. 1, you're paying for things you would know, but you would know sooner. In our framework here, it was about 15. 2, you could be paying for things that you're never going to know no matter how long you wait. So the value is going to depend. The first one depended on your opportunity cost. If you have more opportunity cost, you're going to pay. If you're a patient guy, I can wait, you're not going to pay a lot for that information. Here you're paying for the benefit of information. How are you using that information? Are you using it to avoid a loss? Or are you using it to make money? Depends on the situation. But this is what you're paying for. So anytime you're selling marketing research, it may sound obvious. Customers are either looking for things that could be valuable to them or things that would help them make more money. Here is a formalized discussion. Here is a more numerical explanation to illustrate to you why marketing research is helpful. So if you guys ever have to go and do marketing research, then it's always important to go back into your mind and when I'm doing this, what am I doing? Am I doing it for speed or am I doing it for the insight? And then you can use that to decide how much effort I want to allocate to this. Because not every input will yield the same output. So you have to prioritize what you are trying to do in terms of marketing research in this setting. So in other words, marketing research is another way to view the option to delay. All right. So that's the last example of this set of slides. I just want to say a few words before we move on to the next set. That is, these examples, I made the examples very clear, so that we can use it to illustrate. We can use it to illustrate the potential benefits of real options. But in reality, though, a lot of problems we face in life aren't as structured as this. Where are the milestones? When can we make these decisions? Not very clear. So lack of structure. And even if you do have structure, it's not like the world is a binary tree. Good or bad scenarios. There can be multiple scenarios you can think about. So the tools are pretty complicated too. Turns out there are ways to think about this using the financial derivative, financial engineering techniques. But even if you can do it right, it's still difficult to justify that there is a true value. And lastly, when you make these decisions, if you can change your mind, so can your competitors. So if your competitors can also change their mind, then this kind of makes your flexibility a little difficult to try to actually see what the impact is going to be. You may have come across many examples of game theoretical situations like business dilemma and so on. So these are examples of the complications that may arise. So it's best used as a way to think a bit more strategically about what your investment decision is capable of. In reality, not a lot of organizations end up using this because it's difficult to put a number on how valuable it's going to be. In any case, it's still worthwhile to think about it. Because if you ignore the option embedded inside your decisions, you tend to underestimate the true potential of your investment. So these examples are meant to illustrate the potential benefits of these decisions and how it may change the way you view investment decisions. How you decide to incorporate this in the capital budgeting framework, it can be a little complicated and not very commonly done. But I hope this gives you some idea about how to approach investment making decisions and try to understand why some decisions that don't look like they make sense, that they don't make sense a lot, but it turns out it may be motivated by something deeper than that. So this ends the topic on capital budgeting, project analysis, and this is where your next assignment comes in. You've been given the cases already. So this is a case about a hypothetical company that sells energy gel. So those of you who are marathon runners, you may have used them already. Basically, it's like a pouches that you carry on you so that when you go on very long runs, you can replenish yourself along the way. It's quite a dated case, but you can, if you learn a little bit about the background of these products, you can enjoy it, but you can actually do it without really understanding a lot of products as well. It's also meant to be a technical case for you to think about in real life. Information that's been given to you from many sources could maybe influence the way you evaluate a project. So I have some guidance for you in the cover page about how to approach that question is to think about. The general question is to think about the capital budgeting framework of this company. We have a company that hasn't really formalized the way they evaluate business decisions. So please recommend how they should do it. Then your recommendation, it means I want you to use it. So that means using your recommended decision framework, the parts that you may agree or disagree with them, modify it to your needs. decision, and then use it to evaluate the proposal for this end digital product, whether we should proceed or not. Okay, bear in mind along the way, when you make a decision, it's not just about you. It involves many different departments. So different departments may have different concerns. Bear in mind those concerns and then come up with a final recommendation as to what you're going to do. Your write-up should not exceed 2 pages. Your text part should not exceed 2 pages. So in your final output that you're going to send me, I would like a PDF file that has 3 components. First one is a cover page with all your team members and a student ID. Right? The next 2 pages will be your write-up of the case. And you may include exhibits with the case, but please limit it to no more than 3. Okay, no more than 3 pages supporting evidence. So in total, there should be 1 + 5 pages, 6 in total. So if you submit, say, a spreadsheet, okay, I would like you to annotate the spreadsheet in a way that somebody not entirely familiar with the issue can have a look at that spreadsheet and see what this spreadsheet is about. In work, you may have to present your analysis to people who are not really doing the models. So I'd like you to bear that in mind. As audience, as reader, we're not going to go back and audit your financial models. We're going to look at the output. So you should clearly structure your financial models to indicate the reader what exactly you're doing, okay, and then how does that relate to your final recommendation to the reader. Right? So the instructions are open clear on the sheet they gave you. The case, unfortunately, I can't give you electronic copy because of copyright reasons. I'll try to find I think if I recall correctly, I may have the Excel spreadsheet of the case. So you should not have to type all the numbers in again. Right? In terms of having an e-document, I have to apologize because copyright issue, we can only give out the hard copies. But the guidance note in front, the cover page of the case, I can put that online for your references. Okay, this is you in the last class. So you have like maybe about a month, less than a month to do it. So it should be that time. There will be a long break around the Mahabusha area. You can use to do this, and also I will have a sample exam ready before the long holiday, so that if you want to prepare, you can do it then. All right, I haven't written the quiz for this topic yet, okay, but it will be soon. Area options will be soon, the next couple of days. I apologize, I haven't been able to do this more quickly, but I'll prepare this for you as soon as I can.
So yeah, check. 5, 6.
Okay, the next topic. One of the most I guess open-ended topic in the whole finance in a way that there really is no right or wrong answer about how to approach this. Yes. Handout
We don't have the handout.
for this.
Yeah.
Oh. Okay. So you guys have a look on your computer or your phone for now. I'll upload it right now. Sorry.
Okay.
If you have time to print it out. Sorry, I completely forgot that your class I haven't given the notes to you. Yeah. It's in the drive already, but I didn't print it out for you. Sorry about that.
ใส่ยับเลย
I'm sure you know. I'm sure you know.
ที่ไม่ผ่านเนี่ยอาจารย์
Actually, it's very common in Japanese.
พี่น้องให้ใจช่วยโอเค
Right, let's go.
For this, I would really rather you not have too many members in a group. Okay, I think if I recall, I put down six per group. And since it's a short case, right, there's only one work, I'd rather you work in a small group instead. Because if you work in a large group, it's quite hard for you to really do the cases by yourself. So for this one, okay, usually for big projects, I let you have big groups because other classes have groups too. But for this one, I would like you to stay in small groups instead because it's for your benefit. So I apologize. Okay, you may form your groups. Okay, it's up to you. But yeah, you can try doing that too. But remember, right? This is going to be one of the topics on the final exam. So that's why I like to have a chance of doing these cases by yourself. Okay, so this topic is if we can design a course, I can actually design the whole course on this lecture. Okay, because this is literally about 30% of all academic research being done on finance. It's about how companies should make financial decisions. Okay, we call this corporate finance theory. So I know the lecture notes and so on says capital structure, but I want to be a little bit broader than that. Okay, I want to think about corporate financial decisions, things that company can decide. And we want to have frameworks to think about if companies take this action, does it matter? Does it matter whether the company take that action? Is this a good or bad decision for the company? And the way we're going to evaluate that is if the company does this, is the company better off or not? Is the company more valuable as a result? You can keep that. You can think of that in the back of your mind. That's what we're trying to decide. Should the company do this or not? And there's a lot of research that documents why companies should do things one way versus another. And at the end, we're going to come to a conclusion that there's no real conclusion. Okay? There are many things company can consider. The trade-offs associated with some actions, and the trade-offs will depend on some circumstances. So the goal of this set of lectures is for you to be aware of when companies make decisions like this, does it matter and why? So the two broad decisions we're going to be talking about in this set of lectures is going to be number one, how company finances itself, the capital structure decision, financing strategy, and so on. And the second question is going to be about the payout policy. When company makes a lot of money, makes a lot of profit, does it matter whether it pays out? And when it pays out, does it matter how it pays out? Does it matter how much it pays out? And so on. So we call this in general the payout policy. And we know from the coffee shop example that companies can pay out in general in two ways. I can pay dividends or I can buy back shares. So we're going to be thinking about those actions as we go along. So I want to motivate this from an academic point of view first. In 1958, a couple of professors, I think they were at Carnegie Mellon back then, they were economists. They were tasked with teaching finance. There was no finance back then. You go to different universities, you ask for a finance department, it doesn't exist. Because finance was really taught as part of accounting. So you've been given a corporate finance textbook, and they say teach this. They read the textbook and they were really unsatisfied because as an economist you try to understand why things behave in the way they do, what should we do. But the textbook is all about accounting and about financial numbers and so on. It doesn't really have anything about what's the best thing for the company, what's the objective of the company, so on. It doesn't really talk much about that. But we know in economics, we had some clear theories about what firms should do and how firms should achieve those objectives and so on. So they said, forget this. When I use these textbooks, I'm going to write a textbook myself instead. So a couple of these professors come together and write ideas from the economist point of view. And as you know, economists like to have models. Demand supply models, ISLM models, and you see. These are ways to think about the world. Models are representation of reality, a simplified version, so that we know when X changes, how does Y change. So that means when you live in a model, you try to model reality, you have to make some compromises. Right? It can't be the true world. All models are false. That's why they call model. None of the models are real, but some models are more useful than others. That's the saying behind why we make models. So they start always on assumptions first. They say, let's start with the world where everything is perfect. And when they say perfect, they have a very specific meaning of what perfect means. For example, in the perfect world, we don't pay any taxes. At this point, you're like, yeah, I'd like to live in that world too. Turns out we're not in that world. So there's going to be some catch here, right? This is the world they think we live in. We see a lot of these items on the list. We know this cannot be true. Number one is already a red flag. We pay taxes in most places, so this cannot be true. That's fine. We're going to start off in the benchmark where the world is perfect. None of these matter. Then we're going to start adding back some realities. What if we do pay taxes? Are we going to change our mind? Are we going to make a different decision if we do have to pay taxes? And so on. So let's go through the list quickly. We don't pay transaction costs, so that means you buy and sell stocks and so on. There's no cost associated with buying and selling. You make foreign exchange, the bid rate and the ask rate is exactly the same. You know that can't be true either. Right? Otherwise, who's going to do that service for you? When firms fail, there's no bank support. We'll come back and talk about this more later. No spread. When you borrow and you lend, it's exactly the same rate. So if I want to lend the money to the bank, that means I put money in as deposit. I get the same rate of return as if I borrow money from the bank. Again, not true. You know there's a spread in the world. Thailand probably has the widest spread in the world, a more developed world, but yeah. So a lot of these, we just think of it as now as there's a lot of restrictions about the world, the perfect world they think we live in. But let's say we believe that. Let's say we believe that this is the world we live in. They say under these conditions, then whatever the firm does, it doesn't really matter. Whatever the firm does, there'll be some consequences, but those consequences are not going to make the firm better or worse off at all. It's going to be neutral. You can do it, or you can avoid doing it. Nothing's going to change about how we view the company. So they say it's irrelevant. So let's start with part one, the perfect world first. Again, I remind you, this is not the real world. It's a benchmark world. You can see if we don't live in a benchmark world, then how will our decisions affect the way we think about financial policies. So the way they would like to motivate is this. Imagine you have a cake. You cut the cake different ways. You give the cake to different people. You can eat the cake all by yourself. You can cut some slices and give to your friends. Can we change the amount of cake we eat in total? It's the same cake. No matter how you cut it, it's still the same cake. This is what it means by the irrelevance in terms of financing. Cutting cake is similar to you seeking financing from the firm. Here's a cake. I'm gonna give the share of the cake to different people depending on how you give me money. I give you my share as a debt because this is my contractual agreement with you. I give the share as equity because that's a different contractual agreement. But still, everything that we pay out, everything you get to eat, has to come from this cake. That's the idea, right? That's why it's irrelevant. It doesn't matter how you cut your cake. If you're eating the same cake, the amount you eat is still exactly the same. So implication of this, typically they say, then corporate finance policy is dead. There is no role to have it in corporate finance or even investor relations department in your business. Just abolish that. You don't need to do anything. No matter where we find the money from, it still doesn't make any difference. So I'm out of a job. Some of you guys are out of a job in this world. Okay. Same thing also applies to payout policy. Okay, this is a little more difficult to motivate. So we talked a little bit earlier about payout policy pertaining to do I pay, how much do I pay, and how do I pay, and so on. But let's say, I think we can kind of use the same cake argument, right? Here's my cake, okay? And the cake the company has contains a bit of income that I owe you, really, as shareholders, because I make profit, and the profit belongs to you. So I can say, you know what, I'm going to give you the cake to eat, versus I'm not going to give you any cake to eat, so I'm going to keep it on your behalf. So you may say, well, then how do I eat the cake? Because if you don't give me the cake, I can't eat it. It turns out you can, because an equivalent transaction in finance is if the company doesn't give you money, you can always give yourself money. If the company doesn't pay you dividend, you can always pay yourself a dividend. It's just doesn't have to be called dividend. You just sell your shares, you get your money back. So if you don't really mind the difference between money being labeled as dividend versus money being labeled I sell my shares in the company, you're essentially extracting your cake from the company by yourself. Okay? And this argument sometimes we call a homemade transaction. If the company doesn't want to make this transaction for me, the company doesn't want to pay the dividend for me, I can make my own dividend. Something that looks exactly the same as a dividend, just that we don't call it dividend, but for my purpose, I'm happy enough because I get the money anyway. So that means whether I call it a dividend or a buyback doesn't change anything, money still goes. Whether I pay out or not, still doesn't matter, because if you pay out and I don't like it, I can use a dividend to buy the shares in the company again, put my money back in the company. And if you don't pay out, I can always take my money out by myself as well. So if none of this makes a difference, then I'm not going to really have a preference one way or the other, whether you pay a dividend or not. Okay, so this is how we motivate the irrelevance theorem for both capital structure and payout policy. It doesn't really matter. For the capital structure, if it's the same cake, you get to eat it anyway. For the payout policy, it doesn't matter. It's my money anyway. Whether it's my money in the company or my money in my pocket, still my money. So I don't really care. I have a way of moving money in and out of the company myself. I don't need to rely on you. Thank you very much. So, company can choose any financing they want. Companies can choose any payout policy that they want. It doesn't make a difference at all. But one thing to be aware of though, even if we cut the cake differently, we get to eat the same amount, but the way we cut our company affects the risk distribution within the company. And we talked about this in our cost of capital class. A cake is a company. The company has cash flow coming in. It's risky. You can divide it in any way you want. Okay, the cash that you have is going to be the same as the cash that you pay. But the way you pay your cash can affect the nature of the cash being paid. It doesn't change the amount, but it changes the nature. And a clear example is if you have more debts, as shareholders, you're going to be more risky. So if you imagine your shareholders inside this firm where there's no creditor at all, everything belongs to you. Fantastic, you're only exposed to the business risk of the company. But if instead you are a shareholder of an equivalent company that has the same size, same business, same enterprise value, everything, but when you share your benefits, you share it not just among yourselves, or you also have creditors. So this changes the nature of your cash flow. The creditors take the safe part out. So as shareholders, you start with the more risky part. So we saw this from the Hamada equation and so on. So let me motivate this with you again. I think it's one of the more important issues. So let's have a look at a numerical example to see this example. To see this in action. So let's see, we have a company that has no debt right now. Right? Let's start off with this. When a company has no debt, its financial data looks like this. I have 1,000 shares. Each share is $10 per share. So my market value of the company is 10,000. Down here I have different states of the world. different possibilities, different outcomes. So in a bad state of the world, my income could be 500. In a good state of the world, my income could be 2,000. But since I don't really have debt, I don't have to pay interest. So everything belongs to me. So here we live in a world with no friction, so no taxes. You would have had to pay taxes, but no taxes here. So everything you make belongs to you. You don't have creditors. We can calculate this on, say, a per share basis. Right? There are 1,000 shares outstanding, so the 500 is going to be 0.5 per share. When it's really good, 2,000 is going to be 2 per share. I can also calculate the return on the equity part. If my equity is 10,000, then when the bad state of the world happens, it's 500 divided by 10,000, that's 5%. When the very good state happens, it's 2,000 divided by 10,000, so that's 2%. Suppose you think this is your expected outcome, so think of this as your expected value, the baseline. So you can think, the probabilistic average of your outcomes, you're probably going to get about 1,500. So your earnings per share is going to be 1.5, and your return on share is going to be 15%. Okay, so keep that in the back of your mind. If this company has no debt, we can expect about 15%. If the company decides to change the capital structure, and this decision is referred to as a recapitalization. I change the way I capitalize my company. Let's suppose I do a recap. My company is going to be worth 10,000 as before, but I'm going to change the way I finance my company. Okay? I'm going to replace my equity with debt. Sometimes you call this an equity for debt swap. So then what that means is, before I had no debt, now I'm going to borrow money. But the money I borrow, I'm not going to use it. I'm not going to invest. I don't have any real motive. I'm going to use it to replace the equity I have in the company right now. So instead of having $10,000 in the company, entirely financed by equity, I'm going to borrow $5,000 and use that $5,000 to repay the shareholders, so that only $5,000 worth of equity needs to remain in the company. So the price per share is 10, so you go back and buy 500 shares. Right now, you only have 500 shares outstanding. Each share is still worth 10. So 10 times 5,000 is worth 10 times 500, is worth 5,000. You have 5,000 equity, okay, and 5,000 debt. You add the two together, it's still 10,000 again. Okay, that means our company is worth 10,000 still, but it's being claimed by creditors and also by shareholders. But once you have debt, you have to make payments to creditors, regardless of what happens in any state of the world. So let's say the interest is 10%, you borrow 5,000, so you need to make a 500 payment in every possible state of the world. That means in a bad state of the world, you make 500, you have to pay 500. In a good state of the world, you make 2,000, you still have to pay 500. So what remains for shareholders, the residual amount for shareholders, will be vastly different. In the bad state of the world, the residual amount for shareholders is all gone, 0. In the good states of the world, you have 15,000. So compared to earlier, you had 2,000. Now you have 15,000. It looks like it's less. Remember, it's 15,000 based on an equity of 5,000. Here was 2,000 based on equity of 10,000. So that was a 10% return. Here is a 30% return. So when you have more debt, the impact of having more debt is it makes equity returns more risky. That was a Dupont relationship you saw in financial statements analysis. The good state of the world becomes really good, but on the flip side, the bad states of the world become really bad as well. So it widens your possible returns. It makes your returns riskier. So this is a numerical exposition of what we mean by increasing the risk. But I want you to, this is a graph, right? When the company was, let's read the graph together. On the y-axis is how much the company earns in terms of operating income. Remember, this is independent of the way the company is financed. This is EBIT, earnings before interest and tax. So whether the company uses debt or not, EBIT is the same. This is from your business model. On the y-axis, we have earnings per share. We can replace this by return on equity too. Same thing can apply. So this graph shows the sensitivity relationship. As your income changes, how does your return to shareholders change? For the all equity part, when you have no debt, the slope is like this. When you now have debt, okay, the slope becomes more steep. It means for the same amount of change in operating income, how it feeds down to your bottom line, it gets more sensitive. That is why when we talk about using debt, it's like using leverage. It changes the sensitivity, okay, of your performance as shareholders with respect to how the company itself is doing. And this happens because of fixed costs. You may have come across a concept operating leverage of financial accounting. So here is what's called financial leverage. Similar concept. Operating leverage is when your cost structure has a lot of fixed costs, say from overhead and so on. Financial leverage gives you fixed costs in terms of debt. Anytime you have fixed costs, it makes your performance more sensitive to changes in the company operating performance and so on. So notice the following facts, right? Earnings per share changes, it increases. Why does it increase? Well, there are fewer shares, right? You had 1,000 shares, now we have 500 shares. So you have fewer shares, your earnings per share then increases. The return on equity also increases. You have less equity. Yes, you get less returns, but you use even less equity. So when you calculate that in terms of percentage returns, it's even higher. When we talk about debt, when we talk about equity and so on, okay, we like to talk about companies that have high earnings per share. Here we have a company that increases earnings per share, but the share value remains the same. Here we have a company that increases the ROE, but the share value is the same. So why is it that when we increase all these stuff, that shareholders say they like, I just increase EPS for you, I just increase ROE for you, why shouldn't you be happy? Turns out the share value is exactly the same. So you have to distinguish, right, why our ROE increases, why our earnings per share increases. If our ROE increases because the company is riskier, it uses more debt. If it's riskier, shareholders will also make more demands, so that the increase in profitability is also offset by the increase in risk. So it turns out you're not really adding value to the company at all. Earnings per share is like a mathematical thing. Okay? You have the same stuff, but you divide by fewer number of shares outstanding, EPS is going to go up. So sometimes when you want to analyze whether a company's earnings per share increase or not, you have to be fair in terms of how you define earnings per share. If you take the same income, divide by different numbers of shares, it doesn't mean the company is doing better. You just mechanically change the number of shares outstanding. So you have to be a little careful about when you make an inference about, is my company earnings per share growing or not? Is it growing because I just decreased the number of shares outstanding? If that's the case, then it's expected. It's nothing to be proud about. On the other hand, if earnings per share comes on an actual increase in earnings, then that's a different issue. But the facts here, what I wanted to show you was that share value remains the same. It doesn't affect share value, but it affects the risk, okay, of the shares. So I think we can skip the derivation here and go straight to something that looks like this. This looks a lot similar to the Hamada equation I showed you in the cost of capital class. This is actually the original motivation for the Hamada equation. What this says simply, you can forget about the theory name and so on, doesn't really matter. What this says simply is that, well, you change capital structure, company value doesn't change, company risk doesn't change. But when you change capital structure, the risk to shareholders change according to this formula. And you can divide this formula into skipping a little bit ahead of myself. So how about this? Okay, let's use this formula first, and see what this is doing. This formula says the return on the equity of a company that has debt, a levered company, is the same as the return of a company that has no debt, plus some augmented term that is dependent on how much debt you use. Okay, so let's take it as a formula first, and then apply it, and then try to map back into our examples earlier. So I want to do a quick calculation here, and I think it's the only calculation in this sheet, if I recall correctly. In the example we saw earlier, when our company had no debt, okay, our expected return on the shares that we had was about 15%. The company changes the capital structure so that instead of being 100% financed with equity, so zero debt, 100% equity, it became 50-50 debt and equity. 5,000 debt, 5,000 equity. So 50-50 is a debt to equity ratio of 1. For every $1 of equity, that's $1 of debt. And the cost of debt is 10%. So if we apply the formula without thinking, without worrying too much about the logic first, just apply as, plug in numbers. Let's have a look at what our output is. So this is the levered firm. Right, this is the unlevered firm. When the company has debt levered, this is what the return, required return equity is going to be. So plus some term here. Plug in numbers. 15% plus debt to equity ratio. So we had 5,000. Divided by 5,000 times 15% minus 10%. So this is 1. This is 5%. So our output is 20%. To check back the sheet for the alternate case when the company has debt, we also got 20%. So that was how the 20% came about. Part of it comes from the original return you could expect from this business. So that was a business risk we talked about in the cost of capital class. So this part must then be the financial risk. That leads to the conclusion of the next slide. So as shareholders in the company, this is what you were exposed to. This is the equity risk. The equity risk you face as shareholders depends on what this business is doing. And this is going to be the same. Okay? It doesn't matter how much debt you use. This is the baseline risk from the business you're investing in. And then if you decide to use debt, this will be your modifier, your adjustment. The more debt you use, you're going to increase the penalty bit by bit by bit. Okay. If you include one more fact that we know the CAPM looks like this. Okay, so we can make this substitution into here. Then we can rewrite the whole equation in terms of not returns, but in terms of beta instead. Change all R's, call them beta instead. We can write this. Okay, we can write this equation too. And this is what, I guess maybe let's give you some names in case you may come across these later. The first thing we talked about in this class was that whatever you do, it doesn't really change anything. Okay? Turns out the two professors who came up with this theory Franco, Modigliani, and Merz and Miller. So we call the Modigliani-Miller theorem, abbreviated as MM. The first M is for first Professor Modigliani, second M for Professor Miller. I just abbreviate them as MM. MM, proposition one, proposition in academia is like, what you propose as a theory. So you can think of that as theorem too. MM theorem one says, whatever you do to the company, it doesn't change the way the company is valued. No matter how you decide to divide the cake, the amount of cake you eat is the same. We sometimes call the irrelevant theorem. Whatever you do is irrelevant. It's the same. You can cut the cake different ways if you want. It doesn't matter. You can eat the cake now, eat the cake later. It's still the same. So it doesn't really matter. Irrelevant capital structure, irrelevant payout policy. This equation though is called the proposition 2. It says you can change the way you cut the company. It doesn't change things about the company itself. If you dig deeper into different parties in the company, if you change the way you cut the company, you're going to affect your shareholders in a predictable way. Because your shareholders are going to be bearing the financial risk if you add different types of clients onto your cake distribution. So you decide to cut a lot and call them debt. Then the remaining part amount is the same. But you change the characteristic of what remains. You make it more uncertain. You make it riskier. So this is proposition 2, MM proposition 2. And proposition 1 is this. You can cut your cake any way you want. It's still exactly the same as proposition 1. So another way to call this is, suppose I call this, an unlevered firm. So the value of that B, U, the value of the unlevered firm is exactly the same as the value of the firm with leverage. Firm that has no debt, firm that has debt, its value is exactly the same. But as shareholders, in the firm that has debt, this is equity in the firm that has debt, will be this part. The risk to this guy is going to be greater than the risk to this guy, because this guy has no creditor who makes claims in front. So you can also make this more specific by calling this BU and call this BL. The value is the same, but the nature of the equity of these two are not the same. And they're related in a predictable way by this equation. Okay, so I think that sums up the main things that influence the way corporate finance theory develops. As I said, this is a baseline. So we look at one friction. We call the 7 assumptions I talked about earlier. If we say we live in a world where those assumptions don't exactly hold, the violation of these assumptions we call them frictions. Because perfect world, everything goes smoothly. If it doesn't go smooth, then there's going to be some friction associated with it. So we can associate the frictions one by one and see what the impact of those frictions have on the way we think about corporate financial policies. So we have some time to go over the first topic before break. So let me start with the thing that you see in other contexts already, but I'm going to talk about it in terms of the financial policy instead. And that's going to be the tax friction. Friction number 1, taxes. We all pay taxes. And there are only 2 things that are certain in the world. Many poets say only debt and taxes are the 2 things you can't escape in the world. So, what are tax matters? Tax matters in a major way. Tax allows us to tax. If you pay tax, your choice of financing affects how much tax you pay. One way to view this is that we have cakes before. Turns out now there's a third party that also gets to eat cake. is a government. The government takes a proportionate share of the cake. So you had a cake all kept to yourself. The government says, oh, before you can eat it, let me eat 20% of that cake. You can keep the remaining 80%. Thank you very much. But if I have creditors, sales, expenses equals EBIT. EBIT, then interest, then tax, then you. So the cake your creditor gets to eat before the government. Your cake is worth 100. Your creditor takes out 40. The government takes 20%, not of the whole thing. The government takes 20% of the remaining 60. So they eat less. So the way we think about this is that we treat the government as an outsider. You don't belong here. You're just taking money away from me. So the less I pay to you, the more happy I am. Okay, you may debate this view, right? You may think it's a right thing to pay as much taxes as possible because you want to support the country. I know people who think this way, so there's nothing wrong with that, right? You really believe in helping the country. But the way corporate finance theory works is that the government is not included as part of the company. Right? So the whole cake, the same thing, the whole cake, the people who get to eat the cake can only eat the full amount of cake. But what we count as people doesn't include government. So the less they eat, the more we get to eat. That means the more debt we have and the less taxes we pay. The less taxes we pay, the more we get to keep among ourselves. Ourselves can be creditors, can be shareholders. That's fine. These are us. The government is not us. So we want to exclude them. And that's why when we calculated WACC, there was this after-tax quirk built inside because we know when we make payments to creditors, these are tax deductible. So this is to reiterate, the old versions of the class, I didn't make a very strong point about the fact that how WACC calculation can be influenced. But I want to go over that point again anyway. Suppose you see this example. As I mentioned to you earlier, this example is one of the most common I see in your IS presentations and also in real life business plans. Two sources of capital. One source has lower rate, debt has lower rate. So that is cheap. Let us use more of the cheap stuff and less of more expensive stuff. So once you calculate the WACC, you get a very low number. If you're doing that, always bear in mind, if you want to make that calculation, what you're implicitly saying is that I have a project right here. Let me change the way I finance the project. I can drastically change the feasibility of a project just by changing where I find the money from. I had a project that used to have very low returns and it used to have very high benchmark. High benchmark implicitly means it's a risky project. So let me change the way I finance a company. I can reduce the risk of the company just by changing where I find the money from. And you know this doesn't sound right. But that's exactly what the mathematical calculation you do is getting you that. Just because you can calculate the number doesn't mean it's going to be right. So I want you to keep this example at the back of your mind anytime you ever have to come across this calculation. You can get this one is corrected number. In the old version, I had in the bad example, I had the number remain at 14%. But you know it cannot remain at 14%. It just doesn't make logical sense. You have a lot more creditors now. How come you only demand the same rate? You're riskier, so you have to demand more. And that relationship, we use the equation we're going to see later. So this is a graphical illustration of the point we talked about earlier, right? In the world with taxes and world with no taxes, you don't get to eat everything. Government eats first, then you. So you pay your dues, and the rest is yours. But if you do have debt, creditors get to eat first. That means you pay less taxes. So if you compare the taxes you pay when you have no debt versus taxes you pay when you have some debt, the difference in that amount remains with your company. So where does that go? Well, it belongs to the company. then it belongs to shareholders, the company as a whole. So you can visualize, the value of the firm. If I have no debt, this is how much I'm worth. If I do have debt, my company is worth the same, just like before, same case, except that I pay less taxes to government. So the part I get to keep is going to be added to my company value. Now we can write the relationship. We can write the relationship that we wrote earlier. VU, value of the firm with no debt, compared to value of the firm with debt. The value of the firm with debt is going to be the baseline business value plus the value of tax savings, which we call this the debt tax sheet. In more advanced finance courses, there are ways for you to quantify this tax shield more explicitly, but in simplified application, this value of the debt tax shield is precisely the reason why we lower our cost of capital when we have more debt. Remember, when we calculate free cash flow, whether we have debt or not, our free cash flow is exactly the same because we assume it has no debt. So how we finance the company doesn't affect our free cash flow. That means when we calculate our IRR, it's still going to look exactly the same, whether we have debt or not. So we have a measure of cash flow and rate of return that doesn't incorporate the tax savings. Yet when we are paying less taxes, there's a benefit to using debt. So our solution is then to lower the hurdle rate instead of saying that I'm going to adjust the cash flow. We're going to say let's keep the cash flow the same. But if you're making benefit from using debt, the benefit of debt is going to be reflected inside how we calculate our cost of capital. Right? So the cost of capital then reflects two things. First is the risk of the project you're doing, and two reflects any added benefits of using debt to finance. Okay, so this is is more complicated, but I want to motivate to you. Right? The first one we saw earlier on the sheet down there. We used to have rate of return. We replaced rate of return with beta. The second one is a variant of the first one, except now we live in a world with tax. So we add 1 minus tax to account for the benefit of tax down here. So if we have tax equals 0, this one reduces back to that one again. The equation I show you looks very similar, but has one modification. We make one more assumption. If this is 0, if that is 0, we get exactly this formulation. Now, for most practical purposes, this isn't a big deal. Okay? But for those of you who are interested in taking this finance analysis further, you should be aware that anytime you're using a Hamada equation, it's a simplified equation. Okay? Because this equation only works if you erase this number from here. And this number is the beta of debt. So in cap M, we can calculate the beta of anything. And the beta measures how correlated are you with the broad market. The more correlated you are, the riskier you are. Right? So what this does is it assumes that, well, your debt is either risk-free or the risk is not correlated to the market. So if you're willing to make that assumption, then you can use the final formula here. For practical purposes, you can skip all these and then just go straight to this formula. Just be aware that if you have equity beta, to make use of equity beta, you may have to go through the process of converting it into the one that excludes financial risk. The term in the red parenthesis here is the term that describes financial risk. And what I show you from top are several specifications of how you can describe financial risk. And this one is a simplified version that allows us to do the conversion relatively quickly. The quiz I designed for you gives you some examples of cases that you may need to use this equation to gain some useful insights about the business or to calculate some numbers that could be of your purpose. For example, if you want to estimate the cost of capital of a company that is not listed in the stock market, So this could be your IS, for example. You want to start a new business, but you have no direct reference. Well, you have some comparable references in the market. I might be doing agriculture. I might be doing beauty products. So I can use the right references in the market to estimate my own. I can use this to evaluate financial plans of the company. Suppose my company wants to change capital structure. How much benefit can I get from the tax shield that we talked about? So you can use this to change the company capital structure. Or financially, you can use this to benchmark. Okay, is this company risky or not? Because when you measure beta from Bloomberg measures is the stock of this company risky or not. It doesn't measure the company per se. So you want to move from a risk measure that measures how risky the stock is to the risk measure that measures how the business risk is. You can go through this process by using the red term to scale down the risk to obtain what the true business risk should be. So I want to pause our discussion over here and then continue on to a tangential topic about debt usage. Okay, so let's take a 15-minute break and then we'll come back.